Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining me. And we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, kefir, but we're going to talk about the history of it. And it's been around for so long. Actually, I've been doing it for so long, 20 years. And it has such an interesting background. And a lot of people write to me and want to know how to make kefir grains. And literally, you can't do that. Scientists have tried to replicate kefir grains, and they can't do it, which I kind of like. I like that they've been around since, goodness, you'll find out as I tell you these stories, they've been around forever. And you can't really replicate them in a lab. You kind of got to get them from somebody, and they grow and multiply. They're just about the coolest thing ever because they grow and multiply. They usually double in size every week if you make kefir every day. And then you can give some to your friends. You can blend them up in smoothies and eat them because they have a lot of good properties in them. You can give them to chickens or goats, things like that. They love them. And they just keep growing, and they'll just keep making you kefir. My original kefir grains have been going for 20 years. And I think they'll keep going as long as everybody takes care of them and keeps feeding them. If you ignore them, they can tend to get sluggish, run out of food, and die. But if you feed them and take care of them, they can last forever, for generations. And they have, because of these stories I'm about to tell you that are very cool. So there are a lot of legends about kefir. And one of my favorite things about kefir is all of the different stories that I keep hearing throughout the year and the history behind kefir grains. So they've been around for thousands of years, and there are stories, and there were also mystics behind this food that allows tales to be told, but also there's some documented evidence of kefir grains. And one of the very first stories I ever heard dates back to the time of Abraham the prophet. And it is there in ancient scrolls that they found in Turkey that the patriarch Abraham credited his long life to this fermented milk. And another story passed around said that the manna that fell from the sky to feed the children of Israel was actually kefir grains. Now, I don't know if that's true, but there are some people that say that legend that they were actually found in Turkey, and that kefir was given to Noah from an angel to sustain him. So these are just legends and myths and stories, but however it goes, it is documented back in some scrolls in Turkey that kefir grains were around back then. Now, another person who talks about kefir grains is Marco Polo, and he mentioned kefir in his chronicles of his travel when he was sailing to the east. But the most documented story from kefir took place the Caucasus Mountains, which is between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and is a border between Asia and Europe. And it was here that the legend prophet Muhammad claimed that the grains were a gift from Allah. And then he gave the kefir grains to the people and taught them how to make kefir. And the grains of the prophet, as they were called, were guarded carefully since it was believed that they would lose their strength if the grains were given away to the wrong people. So allowing the secret on how to use them, they didn't want people to know and have it become common knowledge, so they kept that a secret. So throughout the centuries, people occasionally heard strange tales of this unusual beverage, which was believed to have a lot of magical properties. And the people in the Caucasus Mountains had been drinking kefir for over 1,000 years. And they are very well known for routinely living into over or above 100 years old. And not many people outside this mountain range used kefir, and it was mostly forgotten about for hundreds of years until the news spread of its treatment for tuberculosis. So, Russian doctors believed that kefir was very beneficial for health. And in the first scientific studies of kefir that were published in the end of the 19th century, there was a lot of information and doctors wanted to know what was in it. But unfortunately, the kefir grains required to make milk were extremely difficult to come by. However, Russian doctors really wanted those kefir grains. So in 1908, a committee of Russian doctors determined to get some kefir grains came up with a plan. They contacted the head of Moscow Dairy, Nikolai Blandov, and he had connections in the Caucasus Mountains, where the dairy made some of the cheese products that their community ate. And they sent a beautiful employee named Irina Sirkova, I'm really not saying that right, Sakharova, I think her name was, to the court of a local prince to see if she could entice him to give her some grains. The prince was really taken with her, and he had no intention of giving her grains, so instead of giving her the grains, he kidnapped her for himself. However, the Tsar Nicholas II was not very happy when he discovered what the prince had done, and he ruled that the prince was to give Irina 10 pounds of kefir grains to repay her for the insults that she had endured. These precious kefir grains were taken back to the Moscow dairy, and the very first bottles of kefir ever manufactured commercially were offered for sale in Moscow in September 1908. And then, by the 1930s, kefir was made and sold on a larger scale, and the rest is history. In 1973, the Minister of the Food Industry of the Soviet Union sent a letter to 85-year-old Irina, thanking her for bringing kefir to the Russian people. And that was an exciting time, because without her, they probably wouldn't have gotten those kefir grains. And it's really interesting to see how much this has trickled down to the rest of the world. So as I said before, kefir grains are very unique, and scientists cannot duplicate them. Even though they know exactly what bacteria and yeast are in kefir grains, they cannot make the real thing. Scientists have all kinds of abilities and technology in the world to alter molecules and make drugs, but they cannot create kefir grains no matter how hard they try, which adds even more mystery to their original origin, which I absolutely love that. Kefir seems to have been around since time began, and it really has been around a very long time, but it has written its own story on my heart and the lives of my family and friends. It changed everything for me, everything in my life. And I'd like to believe that kefir came to me just like it came to the many people down throughout history. I was praying for wellness in my life. I was very sick, and I needed help, and I didn't know what to do. Doctors didn't have answers, and I wanted to live a healthy life. And it wasn't very long after I prayed those prayers that kefir kind of fell in my lap. And if I tell you the story, I've said it many times, I was in a health food store, and I grabbed 2 books off a shelf, and I put them in my lap. And when it was in my lap, it kind of opened up because I had kind of plopped down in a chair, and it opened to this page on kefir, and that was Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. And I started reading about it, thought it was interesting. Well, when I picked up the other book, it too opened where my thumb was to a page on kefir. And that was the Body Ecology book by Donna Gates. And I was startled when I saw that both of these pages had opened to that. And right at that moment, a store employee in the health food store was walking by, saw me reading those books, and he turned around and he said, "That's the most important book you'll ever read. You should pay attention." He was referring to the Nourishing Traditions book. And I was chills all over my body. So I went and found kefir in the store, brought it home, started drinking it, bought both of those books, started researching it, gave it to my young child who wasn't doing very well, and myself. And in 3 weeks, our lives were transformed. My high blood pressure went away. My blood sugars normalized. My 10-year-old daughter started sleeping through the night. She stopped spitting up all the time, being sick. And that I spent, oh my gosh, hundreds of nights researching kefir because there wasn't a lot of information about it. But I wanted to know what this miraculous food had done to me and her. And then fast forward, I started giving to my friends. I watched food allergies disappear. I watched people's guts be repaired. I saw asthma go away. I saw acid reflux go away. It was just snowballing faster and faster. And it literally, it came to me when I needed it the most. And it was a miraculous food and has continued to do that throughout. It was a long time before I ever started a business or started telling people about it, because I just kind of kept it to myself and told my friends and family. And people just started bugging me and they wanted me to write a book. And I was like, I don't know how to write a book. I'm not doing that. And they were like, well, just make a website so you can show us how to do it. So I did that. And honestly, if I had not had so many people just knocking down my door asking for help with this, I would have never done it. And I self-published a book on it. And a publishing company found me and asked if they could publish my book, republish it, and do it under their brand. And I became a published author. Everything was just a little miracle that just kept happening. And lo and behold, here I am after my first kefir 20 years later, realizing that this was the greatest, one of the hardest things that I had gone through was being sick, but the greatest answer to my prayer that I could have ever imagined. Who would have thought that my answer would have come in a jar filled with kefir grains that would change my life in such a miraculous way? And I believe it was sent to me to help me so that I could help others. And I remember when I prayed that I said, if this works, I will tell others. Reluctantly, I didn't know how to write a book or have a website, but what a blessing it has been. It has changed everything in my life, my whole entire life. And it's kind of become my life's destiny because I just think everybody should have it. As I get older, I see more and more benefits from it, and how it keeps me young and keeps me happy and keeps everything working great and with my family and with my own body. But it has been, I'm so thankful for the pain that brought me here. I really am. I'm so thankful I got so sick. And what a difference it has made in my life and so many others. And if you're interested in reading some of people's testimonies, because there's things Kefir did that I had no idea it could do. And fast forward many years later, a lot of the research is catching up with what I know. And so there's a lot of research evidence to explain some of the things that Kefir can do. But I have a place on my website called Lives Touch. If you want to read some of those stories, they're heartwarming, they're wonderful, some of them miraculous. And it's just food, guys. It's not a drug. It's not expensive. It's very sustainable. It's something that you'll have your kefir grains forever if you take care of them. And it will make you thousands of jars of kefir, just like it's done for me. Okay, so back to my story. I kind of got sidetracked there. But I have my own kefir legacy. And my story is a little different than theirs, but it still continues to grow. And I know that story was not meant just for me, but for you too. And it did come to me when I needed it. And honestly, guys, if I could have you eat one cultured food, it would be kefir. It's my favorite. It has the most probiotics. It has 50 plus probiotics in it. It's and it has good yeast. It has good yeast and good bacteria in it. We need those. We need both of those. And it has some of the most powerful bacteria that we need to stabilize things in our gut, to help our hormones, to help our mental health, to help joint pain, to help acid reflux, to help balance blood sugars, it does so many different things. And I have a lot of health articles with research in all of them to explain how it works, why it works, what it does, and what a difference it can make in your life. I've discovered that in certain parts of the world, kefir has been strongly linked to people living to be over 100 years old. And it's so much stronger than yogurt because yogurt has 3 to 7 good bacteria where, as I said before, kefir has over 50. And they even found a new study that was done in 2021 in Japan that found that people that lived to be over 100 appeared to have a special type of bacteria in their gut that contributed to their longevity. In particular, they had certain strains of an organism called, and I'm not going to say this right, Ordeobacteriaceae, and it makes bile acids that act as antimicrobials against a range of different illnesses, and there's a lot of them. And the Centurions that are in Sardinia, Italy, have a high diversity of core gut species and microbial genes, and they're very prevalent in those who live over to be 100. And they seem specific to those people, the way they've fed their guts throughout their lives. That seems to be helping them to live a long and healthy life, whereas the younger people don't have it because they have a different diet. So the microbial in these centurions, they have something especially called glycolysis, and this process is helping them to break down glucose. and to produce energy. And that's a really important thing to do as you age, is to keep control of your blood sugar. And it's mostly credited to short chain fatty acids. And that's also related to your gut species that's in your gut. And these people have a lot of things that help them to stay long and healthy because of the short chain fatty acids that they have manufactured in their gut due to some of the species of bacteria they have in their gut. And there's a lot of evidence showing that your microbiome contributes to your longevity, your healthy life, your healthy mind. And I just don't do a day without kefir. It keeps me young. I see evidence of it every single day. I mean, I had kefir for dinner last night because I didn't want to make dinner and I was craving it. So I made that for dinner last night. And it's just a gift to me. I never tire of it. I have hundreds of recipes on my website. And I have how to make kefir. I have easy ways if you're busy and you don't have time to care for kefir grains. I have an easy way where we have this thing called Easy Kefir. It's flash frozen, and it's made from kefir grains. And you put this powder in a jar with milk. You let it sit for 24 hours, and you can make non-dairy. You can make regular dairy. And the next day you have kefir, and you can take a portion of that jar and make another jar and another jar and another jar. And it just keeps going. And it's so easy, and you don't have to use grains. And it's really wonderful because it's made from grains. It's just an easier form of it. I have tons and tons and tons of recipes. I have how to make all different kinds of dips and smoothies and desserts, and you just name it. I've got it because I do it every day. It's important for me and my family to have these foods. And so I always find ways to make them, which I pass on to you. So thanks for listening. I love kefir. I hope you'll try it. It's probably one of the easiest cultured foods to make. You can buy it at the store, but it's better if you make it because you don't know how long it's been sitting on a store shelf and you don't know how they make it. Some of the manufacturers pasteurize it a little bit, which isn't very good for you because then it kills a lot of bacteria. But kefir is an astounding drink. It will last for a long time in your refrigerator because there's so many good beneficial bacteria in it that it preserves the milk and keeps it safe and keeps out pathogens. But it does that inside of you too. It keeps out pathogens, keeps things running smoothly. We just wish we had a light into our inner world, what's going on with our microbiome and how it helps everything and helps communication between our cells, helps fight pathogens, viruses, helps to boost our immune system, helps to keep our skin healthy, especially our brain health. All of those things are so important for wellness and just to live a happy life. And life is too short to not feel good. And kefir is what turned it around for me. And I think it can do that for you too. Check out my website. Check out the links below. I'll list all this on how I make kefir and the many recipes that you can do with it. And I hope and encourage you, if you don't want to make it, buy some. I just want you to do it because I want you to see the difference in your life. Thanks, guys, for listening. You have a good week, and we'll see you next time.